Hello, Michael Bull here with the Commercial Real Estate Show. We're at the 2016 National Association of Realtors Conference in Orlando with Scott Muldavin. He is the chair of Counselors of Real Estate, CRE, which is an affiliate of the board here, National Association of Realtors. And Scott, one of the things that corporate clients these days are concerned about is productivity of the health of their environment. So what's going on there? How important is this?
This has become a big issue. I've worked in the sustainability field now for about 10 years, looking at the financial performance of sustainability. And I wrote a book that I published 5 years ago called Value Beyond Energy Cost Savings, how to underwrite sustainable properties. And what I learned from all that work is that health and productivity is really the fundamental value foundation of sustainability. So just in the last year or two, there's a company called Delos, which has created something called the Well Building Standard. This Well Building Standard has exploded into the occupier market. It's in 24 countries, 70 million square feet, and really being taken notice by many of the major occupants.
Yeah, and what is the Well Building Standard? How do you get that standard? Because I would think anybody that's running a company wants his employees to be healthy, happy, and productive.
Right, so just for disclosure purposes, I'm a senior advisor to Delos and the Well Building Standard. But the Well Building Standard is actually administered by a public benefit company called the International Well Building Institute. And so if you want to get this Well Building Standard, let's say you're an office building, you're a corporation that wants it for their employees or an investor that wants it, you can actually go, you can look on the International Well Building Institute. And it's very similar to the LEED standard for sustainability, in that you go, there's 100 different criteria, the interventions that you can do to a building. They cover air, water, light, comfort, fitness, and mind. So there's these 7 categories, and you can go and get these tested and put it into your building.
Yeah, I would think it's going to be very important, especially the larger companies, because the corporate world is they're really stressed to get more profits out of less people and put people into more space. So as you're putting more people in less space, you got to be concerned about health and their productivity.
And absolutely, and so a good example of this is CBRE's headquarters in Los Angeles. A couple of years ago was the first building to be certified as a well building. One of the reasons they were really interested in doing it is that when you go to a more mobile office, which many companies are, they were worried that people that were sick were going to carry the sickness from one person to the other. As some of the new technology allows you to actually go in with a UV, and actually with certain kinds of surfaces, you can actually clean germs that would accumulate. It's one of the 100 interventions that you can do to make buildings healthier.
Well, I'm a bit of a germaphobe, so I would love that. So when you're in these buildings, do you get a sense, does the air feel better? Is the lighting better? Do you just feel better when you're in this type of space?
Absolutely, particularly related to the lighting things. You have lighting, you have day lighting, you have other kinds of lighting. A lot of research in the last 12 years on circadian lighting. Circadian lighting is a kind of light that in the morning, if you have circadian lighting, it actually produces cortisol, increases your energy. And in the evening, if your lighting is circadian, like from the sun, it produces melatonin and helps you go to sleep. So the technology now, you can actually get LED lights that are sensitive and actually can produce both the number of lumens and the angle that can produce this healthy benefit. So that's something that's really taking a lot of companies, getting a lot of their interest.
Yeah, and that's great technology, but it seems like in the past recession we had, people were less concerned about sustainability, more concerned about money, but some of the cost of these things have come down, so there's really value there, right?
Absolutely a lot of value. So if you think about productivity, right? So the primary values for an occupant would be productivity increases, reduced absenteeism, You'd also have recruiting and retention advantages, and then health cost savings. So you can actually go and take a look at it. And there are maybe 150 studies that look at individual things like underfloor air ventilation affects respiratory or asthma, which then affects productivity, daylighting that affects productivity, nourishment, standing desk, standing is the new smoking. Some really interesting studies. CO2, one of the most important new studies, just recently in June of 2016, looks at the effect of carbon dioxide on white-collar worker cognition. And this is just blown away the corporate world, because now there are real evidence that if you actually can reduce the carbon dioxide and manage it, you can actually increase the cognition and thus the productivity of your workers. And so productivity, so all of these studies, they range individually from 1 to maybe 20% increases in productivity. So when you do the well building standard or other kinds of well interventions and you put them all together, if you just have a 1% increase in productivity, it produces a nearly 400 or 500% return on investment. So the value of productivity is just dominant in occupiers.
Yeah, and it really makes sense for a corporate user. I would expect that, especially if they own their own building or they're really involved in the build out. But what about for investors who own buildings with multiple tenants in it? Are they going to adopt some of this as well?
Yeah, so again, the most powerful thing for an occupant is, on average, they spend about $700 per year per person per year for wellness, not counting all they spend on health. So for $100 to $200 per year one time on the well building standards, you can create all of these benefits that are very, very cost effective. And so there's all kinds of evidence that occupants, so if you're an investor, your job, you want to be in partnership with your occupants. If your occupants think it's important, 7 of the top 10 tech companies, 7 of the top 10 banks in the world, tons of servicing firms, they're already investing in this well building standard. 95% of companies in the next 5 years will be doing this wellness stuff. So the well building standard, what you can actually do in a building as a foundation for your wellness programs, the human resource, whenever I go out and talk about this stuff with corporate real estate people, I always tell them, what you want to do is bring your HR person. They get this, and investors get it, because if your occupants care, very small changes in occupancies, rents, or tenant retentions can increase your values significantly. The risk of not doing it or of losing a tenant can be huge, and so that's really the value.
Yeah, well, that makes sense, because I think sometimes tenants, corporate users are looking at, well, it's going to cost me another $2 or $3 a foot, but with that increased productivity, it was free.
Yeah, even if you're kind of a non-believer, if you think about energy costs are being 1% of a corporation's budget, salaries are maybe 90%, rents are maybe 9%. So if I'm doing something that deals with the health of individuals, so that's what the well building standard, or with this wellness stuff, it affects occupants, whereas the LEED affects environmental performance. I'm dealing with 90% of the value of what my occupants care about. It's very powerful.
That makes sense. Well, Scott, thanks for joining us today.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for checking out the Commercial Real Estate Show. Don't miss a video of special interest to you. Be sure to subscribe below. And if you appreciate the videos, be sure and thank our sponsors. There's a link to more information about them in the description. For more videos, podcasts, and articles, check out CREshow.com.